Uh, Marita is CEO of CRR Global. She's also a consultant to several large organizations and mentors a large number of practitioners in the field of team coaching. In addition, she designs curriculum and operates training programs for coaches, executives, and teams. Marita has degrees in social work and medical social work from the University of Stellenbosch. She joined the faculty of the University of Cape Town School of Social Work after completing her training in psychiatric social work at Cape Town University. During this time, she became a specialist in family systems therapy and had extensive practice as a family systems therapist in Cape Town. After leaving South Africa, Marita became a world citizen, lived and consulted in England, the British and American West Indies, and Puerto Rico before finally settling in America. One of the current foci for Marita and CRR Global team is on how to equip Agilists with the necessary tools and skills using relationship systems work to put people over process in the global field of Agile. What a background, Marita, uh, you come with, and such a pleasure to have you as our speaker today. What else, Marita, would you like our listeners
Um,
to
I
know?
think to bring a little bit of lightness into this as well, one of the things that you need to know is that I speak dog, and we have two French bulldogs, and behind me, he sneaks in when I don't look. So behind me on my leather chair is the boy. His name is Guido, and Guido is very, very cute, but he snores. He is known globally because every now and again somebody would go, does anybody else hear whale sound or something like that? And some people on the call would start laughing and go, no, that was just Guido. So if you hear whale sound in the background, that's just Guido snoring. So right now, there's not a whole lot I can do about it. So that's one other tidbit that maybe makes it less boring than all the academic bits and pieces. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Marita. So Marita, over to you now.
Thank you. And I see more people coming in. Just a little bit of agreement with all of you. There is, I think I've got 12 slides or so. We may not exactly go through all of them, or we may go deeper into some of them than in others. No, you'll have the slide deck if Haris and them are willing to make it available to you. There's a couple of things that I really want to go into conversation with you and go a little bit deeper, and know that there's lots of other tidbits that you can study, look at afterwards, and you have my email address there. If you have any questions, just ping me. So I wanted to talk with you today about the art of designing your coaching interventions. And I want to start by introducing you to we started innovating on relationship systems intelligence. That's the third intelligence sort of that follows emotional and social intelligence. And one of the principles of RSI is that systems are in a constant state of emergence, always changing. And if you think about your clients, if you think about the work that you do, you can never expect that the same thing that you closed the session with last week is still happening this week when you get on the call. So systems are in a constant state of emergence. Just normalize that. And if we talk about emergence, it feels a little bit more open than when we talk about the speed of change or change that feels a little bit more strategic. So when the principle shows up, as it has with COVID, and you can think of 12 different examples, at least in this second, that's happening in your life. When this happens, when change is emerging, we always are at choice points. We can react to it, or we can react against it. That's something that we will call ventilation. So if something bad happens, of course, there's going to be a reaction to it. We can create from it. If we just look at what happened with COVID, then you can see how there was a lot of reaction to it, but look at the creation that came from it, just in terms of work-life balance, good things, bad things. working from home, the explosion that's happening in how people work virtually. So reacting to it, creating from it, or we can do both. So I just want to normalize also that change is ever present. We have always three options. It helps to know in which one of those you are about something that your client just said, and to separate that from knowing whether your client is in reaction or are they ready to begin to create from. So both equally important. One is not worse than the other. Just know for yourself, am I reactive now? And if so, then one of the things that you can work out with a colleague or a somebody that you work with in coaching is to really have some ideas about what you will do when you are in reactivity. How can you steady yourself to be present to your client? So all three of those. The other thing that for us is the why of CRR Global, actually from that perspective of Simon Sinek and theory of why. The why for us is that relationship matters. And it really is beyond ethnicity, beyond whether we are face to face, whether we are in a Zoom room like this. The most important thing that's happening at the moment is the space that we call relationship between us. So it's a systemic principle, but it also is the currency of all enterprise and all the work that we do. So here's the place that I also want to pause with you. Years ago, when I started in the coaching industry, I came, as Harry spoke to, I came from therapy and consulting, also as a mediator. So I came from those kinds of backgrounds. And there was always, or so often, a conversation about what's the difference between coaching and therapy. And one day I was looking up just the definition of coaching, and I came across the old definition of a coach, the horse-drawn vehicle or buggy that before we had cars. And the definition of coach in that sense changed my perspective forever. Because the definition of a coach in that sense is a vehicle to transport a very important person from where they are to where they want to be. That's coaching. So, and for us, it is about uploading the client brilliance and not so much about telling them what to do. So it's a whole different way when you begin to look at what's the brilliance in my client right now that I can upload. And that really is about those of us that are doing work in corporate and have more of that stance. We know how when change emerges, how we go to strategic thinking immediately. And so how do we remain in relationship? Then this piece, I notice even as I'm speaking faster and faster, that to remember to slow down because we have so little time. Appreciate that which we have. The baby that woke Haris up and kept him busy during the night, whatever it is in your life, slow down. Appreciate those, even in the moments that things may not be so great and in the great moments, so that we can have time to actually process. And then this is a favorite saying of me too. In the last decade, we read so much and saw so much about the speed of change. And my suggestion and invitation for you is with your clients also, how do we shift from the speed of change, the rate at which things need to change and happen, to the pace of evolution and see and allow the thing to evolve, what it's trying to evolve. Here's where I want to spend most of my time with you, and I'm going to invite some conversation amongst you and with us as well. In the book that we wrote, Dr. Anna Rudd and myself, on relationship systems intelligence and creating intelligent teams, one of the things that we discuss is, you can hear that we come from a systemic place that really is viewing the whole and all the things that and ways in which the parts are interdependent. One of the things that we talk about there is that there really are 3 phases of systemic evolution, and therefore also for systems-inspired coaching, where we upload the brilliance. There are 3 phases, and it's really important for you as a coach to know where you are in that process. There are 3 phases. They're iterative in the sense that it happened when we came on the call. We now are in the next phase of it, as you will see as we begin to look at what those are. But there are also those 3 changes that happens in the moment. So here are the 3 phases. The first one is meet. Just think about what happened when you came on the call. Haris came on, welcomed everybody, introduced me. That's a really good example of meeting. Think about when you go into a restaurant and sit down at a table. In the lucky days, years past, when we could just sit down at the table inside a restaurant. And the waiter comes up, greets you, shows you the menu, asks you what you may want to drink. That's meeting. The next phase is revealing. We are at the moment, if you think about where we started, came on, introduced, I am now beginning to reveal. Here's what we're talking about. Here's where we're going. These are the things we're focusing on. Revealing. If you think about the waiter and restaurant example again, the waiter hands you a menu. Here's what you can choose from. What would you like to have? It's revealing what is there. And now think client, what is it that you want to work on? Reveal. And then the last one is align and act. Meet, reveal, align and act. Align and act is that place in your coaching session that you get to, okay, here's what we've worked about, and here's my challenge for you between now and our next session. Here's my request for you. Here's my acknowledgement. That's aligning and acting on the client, what he or she will do. Here's the place that I get really curious. When you listen to this, just think for a moment, you as a coach, the profile, the personality of who you are, which one of these 3 do you think is your favorite? Or the one that you likes best? Just think about it. Put some of that in a chat box. Are you really into meeting the client, finding out, what they want, how they are? Are you really loving that part that is revealing, where there's the conflict, the things that people want to, express about? Or are you really more comfortable and pushing for the align and act? So just think about your clients, think about you as a coach, but it's part of your profile as a human being. Which one of these 3 is your favorite? Haris, I don't know whether you see anything there because I can't see the chat and see all of it that happened at the same time. Just curious. Preferences and maybe why it's a preference. So put it in the chat box. And Haris, can you see anything there?
Yeah, I can see. I think it's a mixed reaction here. Align and act, meet, reveal, reveal. So it's mostly meet and reveal.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
How many align and acts are there?
Let me check. 1, 2, only 2 out of, I think, around 20 responses.
Yeah. And Donna talked about meet because I really enjoy building rapport. And Fatima, great reveal in my opinion, because he's going to lead there. So here's what's interesting. What I have seen, I do a lot of mentoring coaches and some supervision. And in my experience, most coaches fall in the range that you just described. Most coaches really love the meeting because of that rapport thing, because we love relationship, because we want to build that. So meeting, and most coaches also enjoy that. I think Fatima has said that meeting, building rapport, leads you to the place that creates safety for align and act, for revealing. When coaches get into a challenge with their clients, very often it is because we spend too much time on meeting, too much time on revealing, and then the session comes to a close and there's not enough for them to integrate, to go away, to go and do something with. When I say that, I'm curious how it lands for you. Anybody have a sense of how that might be for you, where you've seen examples of it? Yeah, it's silence there in chat now. Just think about places where you got into trouble with a client, or you ran out of time, and it might have been in another place as well. How do these three phases play into this? Yes, that's Jeanette, you've got it. If I'm not mindful, it's easy to run low on time for the all-important wrap-up and the commitment step. And Donna, what you're talking about here is, remember I talked about iterative stages of this meet, reveal, align, and act, is we are meeting people at the beginning of the coaching journey. So that's the meeting, we get their agenda, that's revealing, then we align and act, and here's what we're going to be coaching on. So you can see over the arc of the coaching, meet, reveal, align, and act plays in. Now then in each specific session, I go again into meet, reveal, align, and act so that I can get through to the end of the session. Particularly with the place where I have more difficulty with it often is when I coach people. Most of the things I do is team coaching, and this lives absolutely there. But where I go too long, and then the next meeting for my client is about to start, so I don't have the space to say, can we take a couple of minutes more? So there are challenges and there are opportunities in each one of these three phases. And your coaching design and efficacy is hugely dependent on this. I trust you've got the tools and the skills. We can always earn more and learn more. But these three, if you really keep an eye on where you are in the process, that's hugely helpful. If you've got 60 minutes, you want to make sure that by the time that the last 10 minutes begin to tick on, you are ready to close out the revealing and go to align and act. So really, it's a clock time thing as well. If we spend too much time on revealing, we can't shut it down, and then they feel truncated and they leave the session still slightly triggered or whatever it is. Just a couple more comments and things about that, and I think everybody's microphone is off, but I'm really curious if there's anybody that have a question about that, that you want to ask, and we can talk more about it. I will go to the challenges and the opportunities for all three of the phases. I'm going to tell you, while we sit there talking, an example of revealing. Thank you, Nawal, for reading my mind here. I was, and I have permission to talk about this, years ago, when I first moved to the US, I did a lot of work with Arnold Mindell, Ani Mindell from the Process Work Institute. Their work is hugely influencing what we train. And we were doing a deep democracy process. It was at the university. It was a 3-day event. And we were doing deep democracy, a large group process about multiple different challenges that people were facing. The last day, they needed to leave the facility. I think it was like at 3:15 in the afternoon to go and catch a flight. And the deep democracy process that we had at that time was a very hot one. And we allowed it. I was assisting because it's a large group. So we had several people roaming and working with him. We allowed the revealing process to go on too long. So it got hotter and hotter and hotter. By the time that they needed to leave the room, literally somebody stood up and picked up a chair and threw it through the window. That's an example of, because the longer we stay in revealing, particularly when we work with teams and groups, the longer we stay there, the hotter it gets, or the deeper the grief goes. And then it's too much. We can't close it out. And that's where it gets a little bit chaotic. No, I hope that helps a little bit, but I really want for you to, if there's one thing that I would love for you to do as we leave this call, it would be to think about your next session and really put a time marker in for you. Once you master the art of this, you're not going to be that strategic, but really put a time marker in, whether it's 5 or 10 minutes per meeting. And then do your revealing part, but put a time marker that you want to begin to close out by the time that you get to the last 10 minutes of the call. And from that place, once you begin to get there, you can begin to upload their brilliance, given all that we've talked about, given all the experiences that you shared, given the challenges. What is one thing that you can do? Or however you close your sessions out, but create that structure for you so that you're clear about where you are in the process. That makes sense? Somebody just type yes, no, what the heck are you talking about?
Yeah, Marita, and we have John raising hand. John.
Yeah, thank you, Harris. First of all,
Welcome.
Marita, thank you so much for your thoughts. It's really a very important subject, to be honest. And I was reflecting on what you were saying and what you were asking right now. May I ask a quick question about?
Absolutely.
Thank you. What would you say about when it comes to competency and skill level of a coach? So the level of competency and the skill level and the tools available to him or her when going through these 3 stages, because I believe maybe potentially that if we're more competent at building synchronicity in the meet level, and then we ask more intelligent, powerful questions that are guided towards the objective of the client, we really have a clear understanding of what it is that they want to accomplish, then we won't necessarily need to spend so much time on the meet and the reveal, which is where I feel a lot of coaches get stuck in a spider web. What are your thoughts on that? Thank you.
That's actually a great question. Harris, can we set another call and we'll just talk about that? No, I'm kidding. It's a great question. It's so, I think you're absolutely right. And regardless of skill level, this still applies. So I think here's one of the other things I trust. And I know I hold this also from my deep experience in psychotherapy and in doing systemic work. People, your client, will only go as far as and it's all subconscious. It's not a decision that they make consciously. Your client will not go further and deeper than what they feel comfortable with in that session. Whether that is, I don't trust myself to go deeper than this, or whether I don't trust the relationship between you and me, or whether I don't trust this new coach enough, whatever it is, I trust the wisdom of the client and the system to not go deeper than they are comfortable. And that would be to the extent that people are newer into it. My suggestion would be I'm a danger type, so for this to come out of my mouth, I am surprised. Play it safe. Allow space. Allow them to bring it to you. Upload their brilliance. Is there anything else that we need to talk about that hasn't been mentioned? So just ask questions. And I think you're right. As we become more skillful as coaches, we need to be careful that we don't begin to download our brilliance too much. So it's that there's a dance at the early end of the journey, in early beginning of the journey for us as coaches, and that challenge just shapes itself a little bit more differently as we get more senior and more artful at the coaching. Then for us, it becomes the trap there is to not jump ahead of them. I hope that helps.
Beautifully, thank you so much.
Yeah, so meet, reveal, align, and act. There are challenges, opportunities to each one of them. Let's just look at the challenges of meeting. And we've talked about some of them already. One of the challenges is that we are making assumptions about knowing what's in front of us. And knowing what their experience is. The thing we talked about, if I had a coaching call yesterday or a week ago, I would have been in a very different place from if I have a coaching call today, even me as coach. So don't make an assumption about what's over there. It's one of the challenges. An assumption building on what we had last. Meeting too fast is another one. I assume that since we worked on this last time, I now know what it is, so let's get with it. That's a challenge. One of the biggest challenges that there is for us is to ask questions that we don't have answers for. So to ask a question, but I already know that what you're gonna say is not what I'm expected to say, but the thing that you're making up in a moment. So really ask a powerful question at heart is a question that you ask that you don't have an answer for. So, and then when we talked about careful for staying too long in the meeting phase so that we have enough time to get to some of the revealing. Also in terms of the ICF, International Coach Federation competencies, the client's agenda is part of what drives the whole thing as well. So revealing is very much also about, okay, so let's go to the agenda that we have for this call. What's the preference? Where do we start best? So that's the transition from meeting as well. The opportunities for meeting the system this is a huge one. I had a meditation instructor once say to me, an abnormal reaction in a normal situation is normal. Abnormal reaction, normal situation is normal. So normalize that it's okay to not be okay during the meeting stage, because that gives you the step into revealing. This is very important for teams to acknowledge that there is difference in how people feel and experience what's happening here. Is an opportunity for a meeting. In an individual client, remember that individual client that you have in front of you belongs or is part of a family or a team or a group that they are identified with. So know that your client's experience is his experience or her experience. But the people that she will return to is part of that experience, and they will feel or may experience something differently. That's an opportunity to create that open-mindedness that I can fully align client with where you are. I totally understand. And just know, also begin to feel into what's happening on the other side, because that's the thing that you also need to navigate by the time that you go back with the work that we've done. A huge opportunity there. One of the best things in meeting is to begin to get curious about what is working since our last session and what is not working. So celebrate both so that we prototype from that which isn't working or wasn't working. So you can see how the opportunities of meeting is what sends us and begins to pave the way. It's the scaffolding to take us to revealing. Some of the tips and tools that I want to offer you there is, one of the things that we do in our training is we create a design team alliance with the teams we're working with. Remember, the first system is self. So it's really important for your client to also design a team alliance with him or herself. Ask them, what are some of the parts of you that shows up for this call? There's somebody that is, and let them give them names. There's somebody that is, what, this thing of coaching, why am I even here? There's somebody that goes, I'll never be able to fix this and get it right. There's somebody like, so get those, write them down, let them create something so that they can begin to have a map. People that think that because they do one-to-one coaching, they don't do team coaching, you guys have always been wrong. Every single, read Cynthia Lloyd-Dar's book on the Inside Team. She's one of our senior faculty members, Inside Team. There is a team that is my team. And if anybody is interested, I can send you, and if you want to make a note of it, Therese, we do something that's a paper constellation about who all is participating with me in this meeting, in this webinar, in this challenge that we're facing. And I can tell you, I'm not a morning person. So at 5:30 this morning, when my alarm went off, there was a part of me that go, why did you even say yes to this? So all of us have those kinds of cells. Now, what I do with that cell, I kiss it good morning and say, I'm going to make coffee. You can have a sip of it. Now leave me alone. I got to get ready. So it's normalize these things. We all have opposing voices inside us. And I'm going to give this to you. Please practice it. I would love for you to, when you leave here, here's the things that we do. Actually, is there, I know we're low on time, but is there somebody with whom I can do like a 3-minute practice to create a designed alliance? Anybody that's willing to come and play with me? Really, it's going to be 4 minutes. No. Well, here's the piece. Unless you see somebody, Aris.
I see one yes there, now 2. Yeah. 3.
3, okay. Indy, mini, miny, mo. Kiran, are you willing to play with me? Turn on your camera, turn on your, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you're there? So here's what we're going to do. When you go to your next session with your client, think about a specific client. When you go to the next session, what is the atmosphere or the culture or the climate that you would like to create with that client of yours? If you can just, is it fun? Is it playful? What is it that you think will work with that client? What's the atmosphere or the culture? Give me a couple of words. Karen, are you with me? Say it again. Atmosphere.
Karen, are you? Yeah.
Culture. Yeah. Karen, can you?
Sorry. Audible now? Hello? Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Karen.
What is the there? I can see you. What is the
Yeah.
culture? What's the atmosphere that you think might be great?
First, it is of comfort. And
Yes.
and yes, fun is a positive, but comfort comes first.
Fun and comfort. Fun and comfort. Make a note of that for yourself. I'm going very fast. We'll do it a little bit slower with your client. But we want to know, what is the environment? That's why we call it the social contract. What's the environment that will have them work optimally? So fun and comfort. And then the next one is, in our session, it is going to get difficult. How do you want for us to work with that? Would be the question that, let's just imagine for a moment, you're the client. What is it that you want to create? What is it you want to do when it gets difficult? Because it will. That's why we do this work together. What would be useful for you then?
From my experiences and learning, one, allow it to be there for a moment. Let's say they're thinking deeply. There is a strong emotion. Don't respond immediately. After a while, if it is continuing, offer to say, is everything okay? Do you like to take a pause? Is that how?
Yes. And if it's not okay, then that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yes. Cool. It really is important when we talk with our clients to go to this place. When it gets difficult, what would be useful for you to be able to go quiet and maybe tap something in the screen and write it down on a piece of paper in front of you, and then tell me, what is it that will will be useful when things get difficult. And then imagine that this is a question that you will ask the client. Flourish is such a English word. But if you ask them to, what is it that at the end of the session will have you feel like this was just fantastic? The work that I did as client with you was just amazing. What would have happened? What is it that would have you say that?
In fact, coincidence, I was answering the second one.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the options. What is an appropriate line? One stood out as a new one, apart from what has been prescribed often, is what would make today's conversation fruitful?
That's good. That's good. What is it that will make today's conversation fruitful? And if you look back, you'll go, it's when this happened between us in our coaching session that it was fantastic. Great. Those, I thank you, Karina. Then one of the things that if you were my client and you'd answered this for me as a client, literally, I will write the things down. I will have you write it down. And then I will say to you, well, I need your help. Can you write one thing down that you want to remember in terms of the atmosphere? I know you talk about comfort. So.
Can I share that?
Yeah.
I think what stands out, period, across coaching conversation, though it looks repeated, is safe space.
Safe space.
Did I feel safe in that space?
Great. So safe space. I now, as your coach, will say to you, can I hold you responsible for that together with me? So that when he doesn't feel safe, you will speak out. Okay. And the same thing. What's going to be the thing that's most helpful for you when it gets difficult?
To me, no distraction, stay calm. Because if the coachee sees me moving or writing, it would disturb their emotion or at that moment. So I believe stay calm, no distraction.
Okay.
So you are enabling a positive environment, a conducive environment.
Great. And create some responsibility for that with them as well. And then the thing, what will be fruitful? What will we remember as one of the most fruitful things as well? So, so create co-responsibility so that I, as the coach, can rely and say, it feels like it gets difficult here. What was it again that you said you can help with or speak of when it gets difficult? So that they craft, they author their own agreements. It's not me that tells them as the coach.
On that front, as I was sharing, giving that moment to them without quickly trying to help them or offer options, help them to live that moment. That was the purpose of that conversation.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Exactly. You got it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So for all of you, those 3 questions is a very important way to create meeting with your client. Don't spend too much time there, but ask them, what's the culture? What's the best? How do you want to feel in the space while we're working? Get a couple of words, write them down. And in coaching sessions, often things get difficult. What will be helpful for you when that happens? What can you do? How can you work with it? How can you let me know? Write that down. And then really, if you go and gossip about our session to a friend or to a colleague, what is it that really was phenomenal for you? And what would that be? Write that down. And then make them responsible. So I really need your help as we coach. So if the atmosphere is not quite how you like it, then bring that one thing that you said you will help remember. And the same thing with difficult and the same thing with flourish. That is what is downloading their brilliance. Let them author what will work for you, for them. Let them author what will work for them, and then make them responsible. And then create your own coaching agreement to say, here's what you can rely on me from. When it gets difficult, it feels like it gets difficult, I'm going to ask you to help me because you know what will have me make it easier. That's a way in which that's very different from consulting and from therapy, in which we upload the brilliance of the client. We help to create co-responsibility. It's hugely, hugely important. So that's the one tool that we use that I wanted to highlight for you on the call. That's a tool that comes out of meeting. And then creating the co-responsibility we just talked about. Briefly, the challenges for revealing is, and this is a challenging one for the coach because so often we know better. It's their system to reveal, not yours to expose. You may know things that needs to be said, but let them bring it up. They will bring it up when they're ready. So it's theirs to reveal, not yours to expose. All of us have favorites in clients and in teams. It's part of human nature. If you can know who those are and work with your own inside team around that, you are more ethical as a coach than if you don't. So pay attention to the voices that if you are conflict averse and your client is somebody that is in conflict with somebody, you may take the other person's side, not your client's side. So be careful. Really, that's why supervision is important. That's why collegial conversations are important, not gossip. We need to be able to know ourselves in any one of these situations. So make sure that you hear all their voices and watch your own voting. This is the piece that is closely related to the first one. As coaches, it's not their problems, is not the problem that we're sitting in, it's theirs. So it's really easy for us to go deeper. I can see that there's something else and push them on it. Trust their pace. They will get there one breadcrumb at a time and one step at a time. So going deeper that they can process creates a shutdown. And we talked about not staying too long in revealing. The opportunities for revealing is really about that thing we talked about, normalize that an abnormal situation, reaction in an abnormal situation is normal. So catch them at their best is a huge one. When they do well in the session, catch them, let them know that was brilliant. How can you take more of that outside of here? How will you do that? Focus on that one. This whole piece of pausing, we see this in the global response to COVID. When there is something that needs to be grieved, it's often difficult to pause there. And that's part of what we talk about, being with our clients in the messy middle. So something bad happens. They cried and they're upset or they're angry, and we think it's over, but it's not. There's a messy middle after that happened, that we are now in COVID recovery, if there is something like that, which still is grieving the things that we haven't had, and how do we replace them? How do we do that differently? That messy middle, and the disappointed dreams that is gone. And then we talked about honor the diversity of the experiences, and that not all parts of yourself are in the same place. Trust that. Align and act is that place where we jump up. The challenge is there is that when we align and act, that we can go too strategic, that we lose the relationship, that we go too strategic with it. Remember, we need to have the strategy, but the client also need to return to the people with whom they have the difficulty, and work with the emotions that they will experience as they go back to make some changes. When we get to align and act, we just cannot solve all of them at the same time, and we can't solve too many. So let the client choose. Okay, we've talked about all 5 of these. Which one is the one that you will do something? And what would that be in the next 48 hours or between this meeting and our next call? Not too many at the same time. We talked about that if we spend too much time on revealing, then there's no energy left to align and act. That's a huge thing. So revealing takes emotional energy. It really does. And if we do too much of that, the spunk, the oomph to begin to do something that will take them to the next step is simply they're out of energy. Agile, one of the places where we meet together, coaching meet together with Agile is Agile talk about people over process, but much of their work is in the field of process. So focus on the people, focus on their relationship, and the process to some extent will also take care of itself. Focusing on urgency, there are some things that's urgent that we may not be able to solve in the same urgency. So find alignment with client in terms of what it is that the small piece that they can successfully solve, not the big piece. It's what we've done with COVID. Can solve small pieces, but not the whole thing. Opportunities here we've talked about. This is a good place to revisit the designed alliance we talked about, and create new pieces there for them to take out with them as they go and do things. This one is a little bit more for teams, that action from the collective output, not just one person. We talked about this, and as coaches, you know this. 1 or 2 tasks, and create responsibility outcome for that. Positive rehearsal is huge. How do you positively rehearse what they've just designed that they will do? Let them create the scenario. I'm going to do this and this and that situation. Here's where I need to be careful. Maybe words here is a place where I need to be careful with how I use my words. Positive rehearsal is huge in terms of getting align and act handled. Appreciation loop. Before they sign off, what is one thing, you'll take turns, one thing that they will appreciate themselves for and grateful for, and then you go, I appreciate you for being so calm during the difficult part of the conversation. What else do you appreciate on yourself? So create a loop of appreciation between you and the client for the client and what they do. So this is these are the three phases: meet, reveal, align, and act. There are some tips and tools for you there. There's more in the rest of the slides. I want to just pause here and ask questions, responses, because I've said a lot. So anybody with a question? In 60 minutes coaching, the 3 steps as part of what, yeah, there it is. 10, 40, 10 is probably just about right. And you can now see if you do a workshop, and this is the place where I am really looking at the moment, that my main goal was to bring you these 3 phases. I also have lots of other tips that I can give, but the thing that I wanted for you to have access to and be able to work with these 3. And then I'm going to give you some goodies that's in the rest of the slide deck as well. So if I then do the same thing that we've talked about, if I asked you to just in chat, put down what is 1 or 2 takeaways for you from this session.
Marita, we've got Summer raising hand.
Yes,
Shall
or
we?
questions, that's good.
Yeah, Summer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hi.
My question is actually is which one of the programs that you advise us as a new members or new coaches to take?
I
Because
think
I would love
you
to have like I'm not going to say certificate as much as knowledge. The basic knowledge that I can use to start my coaching career.
Yeah, there's a couple of places. It depends so much on whether your focus wants to remain individual coaching or whether it wants to shift to family or teams.
No, I want to pursue a career actually.
Yeah, I think that there are for individual coaching, CTI is a very strong coach. That's like executive individual coaching, a coaching school that you can look at. The work that we do is at CRR Global absolutely is organization focused, team focused, enterprise focused. So and you can use just about everything that we do there. You can use with individuals as well, because like I said, first system itself. So I would look in the direction of Sierra Global has got that kind of training for career pieces. There's also WBEX is the big body that's doing summits and stuff like that throughout the year virtually. We played in with them a lot, so there's pieces there. But if you really want the depth, either in individual or in individual and executive, then it's probably CTI. And my bias, of course, is if you're looking at systems and teams, CRR Global has got a great program. So
it's CFI, right?
CTI.
CTI.
CTI for individual. And CRR Global are
CRO?
CRR, it's on the slide.
Yes. Yeah, I see it. CRR Global.
Yeah, and CTI.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anything else? Tools and tips for the 3 phases. There are tools and tips in the see how you can use the tools and the skills that you already have. Powerful questions, questions you don't have answers for. There's something that we do that is really powerful. We talk about reading the emotional field. As you are with your client, you will begin to sense an atmosphere. Ask them, and one of the good things to do is to use a weather metaphor so that you don't interpret. It feels like the wind has got a little bit still. What is it that you experience? Or when it feels like there's grief or something, you may go, it feels a little bit rainy or cloudy. What is there for you? So use metaphors to really read the emotional field, because that's always there. But they don't, we walk into a restaurant and we immediately know that I like this one. We've not seen the menu, but there's a feel, there's an emotional feel, there's an atmosphere that we relate to. So reveal that. We're talking about we need to be able to hear, that's what they're saying. We need to be able to see, and that's what they're describing for us, pictures about themselves. And we need to be able to sense what's happening. So hear, sense, see. Hearing we do automatically when we listen. Sensing is feeling into that field and saying something about that. And seeing is ask them to paint a picture for you. What's the picture of that thing that you just described? Draw pain. Or you're really, really angry. If you make a movie about it, what's the title of the movie? Give them things like that that they can play with. Anything else that I've missed as a question?
Not really, Marita. I think you've answered all the questions there on the chat box.
Okay.
Let me, yeah, and there are.
So can you see how when you get to align and act, you really have to tighten the screws a little bit. That's one of the reasons why whenever so here's a what we call an unzip moment, unzipping my mind for you. When I prepare a slide deck for a short meeting like this, I think I've got 12 slides, but I know that I am not gonna get through 12 slides for discussion. So what I do is I figure out which is it that I want to focus on so that I can reveal around that, and so that we can get to this place that we are now, that is about aligning and acting. What are the questions? What are you taking away? I know that as you receive the slide deck, you're going to see 6 or 7 more slides with different information that will help this. So it's tricky. And because we are passionate about the work, passionate about our clients, we always tend to want to give more than we have time for. So you could watch me struggle with that and maneuver through that throughout the call, moving us on faster. Kira, I think that was my very brief demo client, shutting him down a little bit because we needed to move on. But it's in service of the 3 stages that we know we have to get through in order for the client to have value. So welcome to this. All of us are in this world struggling with this. And it's just a pleasure for me to have been with you. And I'm going to quickly there's additional tips and tools that's there that you can have a look at. That's our book, Creating Intelligent Teams, is where the 3 phases are clearly described. And we have partners across the globe, including in your land. So it was a great pleasure for me to be there and be here with you. If there's anything else, I'm happy to, and I'm committed to. I'm happy to stay later if anybody has more questions, but I wanted to make sure that we get everything handled, and on the dot of the half hour, I can let you go. over to you, Haris.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to stop share.
Thank you, Marita. It's really a pleasure to have you here today. And thank you for such a wonderful opportunity to learn with you today. Thanks, Marita. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Goodbye for now.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. Bye.
Bye.